The Manitoba Advocate for Children and Youth wish to acknowledge that we are located on the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the beautiful homeland of the MACY Nation.
And there we go.
All right, we are good to go. Hi, my name is Cathy Cook, and I'm here at the Manitoba Advocate for Children and Youth. Super excited today because we have our special guest. I'm not going to be able to call him that very soon. He's going to be the host soon. But here is Michael. So thank you, Michael, for coming out in the almost cold and hanging out with us. We started off the morning kind of talking about the right today, which is article number 33. It is the government's responsibility to protect you from dangerous and illegal drugs.
And I'm John. I'm back for another week here and looking forward to discussing this with Michael. We've been contemplating getting this done over Zoom, but we figured, you know what, we got the okay, social distance and masks. It's better to do it in person. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, definitely much better. We haven't seen you in a while. Hair's longer. You know, you're a little bit older, but you're still a youth.
Hey, we haven't seen you since last year, I think.
Oh,
Technically, yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Well, happy
been a while.
2021, Michael's first episode
Happy
of 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't believe we're on episode 42 already, though. It's about time to have the youth take it over completely. And, yeah, I can't believe we're on 42 this week, so.
Well, I will say, by the time we get to episode 100, because at this rate, that's where we're going to get, Michael will probably be the host, and John and I will pop in and say hello every now and again.
Fine with me.
But yeah, so this week we're going to be talking about the government's responsibility to protect you from dangerous and illegal drugs. But I should first just point out that Wednesday of this week was Pink Shirt Day, or Anti-Bullying Day, so we had some fun with that earlier. Michael wants to bully some aunties. Sorry, maybe that was John that wanted to bully some aunties.
Michael, I'm sorry. I tried to make sure she wouldn't bring that
For
up.
context, she wrote anti, not anti.
Anti-bully.
On the board.
Yeah, well, I thought I would stop up the boys here and see how they took that. But again, we should kind of do a shout out to those that participated on Wednesday in Anti-Bullying Day, wore the pink shirt and kind of worked to bring awareness to how important it is for our children to grow up in a world and environment without bullying. So segue, I guess, into the article. While it is our responsibility to make sure we are teaching our young people, how harmful bullying can be, Article 33 states it is the government's responsibility to protect children, you, from illegal and dangerous drugs. So pretty loaded. Michael, you want to start?
I don't know how you start with that. That one's a tough one.
It is a tough one. It puts a lot of responsibility, again, on government to make sure that we're doing things in our province that allows kind of law enforcement to make sure they're able to keep those kind of dangerous and illegal drugs. And maybe that's the starting point, is what are dangerous and illegal drugs?
Well, and I like to look at this right from an article from a perspective of its government's responsibility, but looking at it in prevention, action, and then future, as well. So it comes down to not just bringing awareness to children and youth about the drugs and helping them stay safe, but what about those children and youth, unfortunately, that become trapped in that cycle and that lifestyle, making sure that there's supports in place and programs and things like that do help the youth that have already, unfortunately, taken that road and taken that step. So, there's lots of ways to come at this UNCRC article. That's for sure.
So when we try and break it down and we look at the responsibility to protect you from drugs, I suppose that kind of breaks it into a few different areas. Like I said, law enforcement, making sure that those particular dangerous and illegal drugs aren't coming into the city. But let's focus on drugs as a whole, right? So there are a ton of different substances that young people can struggle with addictions from, and adults as well. But when we look at the dangerous and illegal drugs, it's interesting because this year is a little bit different with the legalization of marijuana. So essentially, I guess with the legalization, it is illegal to consume or purchase if you are under 19 years of age. So in that case, it would be an illegal drug. But I think that kind of in our province and a lot of the work that we
And
do.
you know, that's weird because I remember being told, oh, don't smoke weed until you're an adult. I was told that while it was illegal, but there was still approval around it, even though it was still against the law. So,
Well, and it's interesting, right? Because some people will talk about marijuana being a gateway drug to other hard drugs.
Yeah.
So I don't want to really get kind of bogged down in the whole marijuana debate. But really, let's look at the more dangerous drugs such as opiates and methamphetamine. We identified a crisis in our city probably, I mean, it's been over a year, the methamphetamine crisis, and I don't know that COVID has, helped to kind of support the initiatives that were being done to kind of target treatment for methamphetamine.
So what do you think, Michael, when it says it's the government's responsibility to protect, right? So what does that really mean? What are some steps that you think are effective that, that governments can help take to help protect youth from drugs
I guess it
and
would
illegal
be,
drugs?
Preventions, drug busts. I can't really think of anything else, honestly, because it's kind of a normal thing around here in Winnipeg. So it's really hard to think about the government protecting us when we're so used to the government not really feeling like they're protecting us.
So then would you say maybe the approach needs to be about accepting that there is the problem? So it's not protecting from, but protecting as in helping assist those children and youth get out of, right? Since, what you said and Cathy said, we already have that problem. We can't look away from it, unfortunately. Then maybe the government's responsibility then lays into helping those that are already, finding themselves in that world, and we all know about addictions and we know how bad they can be. So,
Actually, you know what, and that makes perfect sense. So Michael had said, prevention and drug busts and kind of the policing of those illegal drugs in the community, but
Which
John
aren't
is-
easy things. Which definitely aren't easy things.
But John is alluding to the fact that protection from the dangerous and illegal drugs, if you're already enmeshed in that kind of world and are struggling with substance abuse or addictions, I think that protection comes from offering resources and supports to help young people come out of that. One of the things we talk about here quite often, actually, with our youth ambassador team, really is the lack of addictions resources for our young people that are struggling with addictions. So again, I think actually the light bulb just went off. I went, yeah, that is exactly what it is then, right? It's that protection needs to come from the intervention once somebody has kind of gone down that road. But again, focusing on prevention with Michael's, comments about the drug busts and making sure that we're, following up on it. One of the things, and actually perfect timing because you're here, Michael. So as a young person, this is always a tough one, and I know that, Crime Stoppers and tips, but if you know of somebody that's selling harmful substances to, young people and possibly putting them at risk, what is your response, right? Because we don't expect you to kind of go in the crossfire of, but how do you respond as a young person to that?
Yeah, I grew up in the North End. You don't rat anybody out, but all I gotta say is, you see somebody selling crack to a child, to a youth, to like a really young person, any hard drug like that, coke, anything like just really messed up, hope you can live with yourself, because that's life destroying. Like you just said, there's barely any supports for people that are under 18.
Any addiction supports at this
Yeah.
point, really. We're really struggling, I think, in Manitoba to kind of create safe spaces for, kids to detox, for adults to detox even.
Well, and I will say, Michael, when you just said that, it made me think. We're talking about child abuse as well. So I see, Cathy had written down, luckily for us, not just anti-bullying, but the article /right 39, the right to help if abused, neglected, or treated badly. So from what you're saying, someone who's knowingly selling these things to children and youth, in part, I would argue that they are abusing that child or youth. They're putting them in harm, and they have a right to help if they have been neglected, treated badly, or abused.
So, and when we do these episodes, it's really interesting because we kind of sometimes start out slow, but we end up kind of really figuring out how these rights kind of connect to one another. So just like John said, I would agree with that. I would agree, as Michael said, I hope you can live with yourself if you were to see that and just not even feel about it. But again, so many of the young people that are in our city are living in the North End, and like you said, that is a kind of a commonality around that is you don't rat, right? And you just kind of, but again, that is more harm to yourself or fear of harm to yourself, right? So it's a really tough one, I think.
People respect not ratting more than having abuse happen to a child, and that's where it's messed up.
It's twisted, isn't it?
Yeah.
So right number 19 actually states you have the right to protection from abuse and neglect just as a whole. And as John said, that right number 19, right number 39, they really, really speak to kind of our responsibility to make sure that we're not letting our kids be abused through the drug trade or through kind of those dangerous and illegal drugs.
And I think that one too, the neglect part, that's where it comes full circle sometimes. So the government's responsibility and neglect. So it's also adults' responsibility and the government's to provide those resources, because if you don't, then you are actually in effect neglecting children and youth. So I like that those two extra UNCRC rights articles that you wrote down they do connect to one another. It's interesting when you sit at home, anybody watching, if you can go over some of these 42 articles and rights and read them, you really start to connect, and see how so many of these rights feed off of one another and how it kind of does come full circle with these rights. And Michael, I think you hit it right on the head that it's backwards. The thinking is definitely backwards.
Oh, yeah.
So I think we've covered UNCRC Article 33 pretty good here. It is the government's responsibility to protect you from dangerous and illegal drugs. And I just want to thank everybody who tuned in this week. I think it's, we could go on forever talking about these rights, and we'll keep these episodes going. I always feel like we don't have enough time, because we try to keep them to short little episodes if we can, but having these discussions, I think, are what's important, and having these discussions with, youth like Michael and having their input on what the government can do to protect children and youth, I think, is very important.
So with that, I think, like you said, we've really kind of taken a good look at it. Again, I want to make sure that we acknowledge the Anti-Bullying Day. I know that is a really, huge issue for many young people, especially now in the day and age of social media. The dangerous and illegal drugs, article number 33, I think this year alone we have lost far too many young people, young adults to those dangerous and illegal drugs. So again, it's really important that we have these conversations, and it is really important that as young people out there, you know that you have these rights and you know that it is our responsibility to protect you.
So, Michael, thank you for joining us this week, and hopefully you join us again next week and the week after, and then eventually you're the host, and we get to hear more and more, youth content and what youth have to say about these, because I think that's really when we're going to start to solve some of these concerns and issues and problems that we have out there when it comes to youth rights.
So make sure you tune in next week for the Michael Show.
And keep it together and keep your mask on. Or I won't be able to be here.
Yes, Michael can only come with the eased restrictions. So everybody, let's not forget about COVID. Let's continue to keep ourselves safe. Let's continue to wear your masks, wash your hands, and continue to come and hang out with us on Fridays because we really enjoy, the idea that we cannot get out there and do these presentations in person. So we're happy to at least try and get out to you somehow, some way.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us.